Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Energy Realities Podcast. My name's Stu Turley. I'll tell you what, you can't beat the energy crisis going on around the world with a stick. If it is a stick, it'd be an ugly stick. I've got two great hosts here today. I got David Blackmon. He is a Forbes author, Substack author, and Daily Caller author. So, how are you today, sir?
I'm just lovely. You're right. It is an awful ugly stick we got going on with energy right now. It's pretty incredible. Tammy has a list of things happening in the EU she's going to share with us that is just mind-boggling. Anyway, I'm good.
You can't buy this kind of entertainment, so it's worth the price of admission. And speaking of Dr. Tammy Nemeth, of the author of the Nemeth Report, which is absolutely fantastic, Dr. Nemeth, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. I have to do a shout out to our abysmal weather service here in the UK because first it was we're going to have rain last week, and then it was no rain, it's going to be hot. So they were forecasting like 30, 32. The highest we got was 28. Today is 23. So they're so reliable. But yeah, it's a beautiful day actually after all the heat we've had here in the UK. Could sure use some rain though, but otherwise, yeah, it's a nice day. Thank you.
Hey, we've already got some great comments. Stu, would you consider on California CO2 injection? Absolutely. I will get that done. And also, we love Aslan. Way to go, Aslan. Good morning.
Must be raining in Arizona. How about that?
Before we go anywhere, I just want everybody to go to, let's go over here. Everybody needs to go to the Nemeth Report Substack. It is the Nemeth Report Substack.com. And this was an outstanding interview. I want to just give you a shout out. Don't want to be nice too early on a Monday morning. I love the electric grandma. She is a great, great national treasure, and I love this interview. So well done.
Well, thanks, Stu. I mean, Meredith is just so amazing and knowledgeable from a realistic perspective, and trying to understand what are the problems, how do we fix them, and what people can do to get their utilities on the right track. So it was a fantastic conversation. All credit due to Meredith, who, of course, everyone should read her book. It's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I read it once a week.
Once a week.
and then we also have blackmon.substack.com. And I loved one of your stories here before we go off and start ripping apart on everything else. You had some great big stories over here on yours. So everybody go subscribe to blackmon.substack.com. And then mine is also theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. And you sent over a list, Dr. Nemeth, to really get us rolling here.
Yeah. Okay. So it was funny because last week I'm thinking, okay, we've done the air conditioning thing. What other madness is the EU up to? And because it's the end of the sort of legislative year, everyone's away on holiday now, or they take August off really. So the European Commission was sort of finishing up on a lot of different policy areas. And so there's like these five major things that they were doing. And then the sixth one is how China's responding, which went totally under the radar. No one's talking about what China's brought forward. But the interesting thing is, number one, they're going to do, again, full-on electrification. So they've been talking electrification for a long time, especially after the Russian attack on Ukraine in 2022, but they're tripling down on it. So one of the first things is that they're having the first ever economy-wide electrification target, and it's going to be 46% of all energy in the EU will be electric by 2040, which will roughly double the current 23 to 24% share of electricity as final usage. So you can imagine what that implies. It implies all the cars will be electric, all your heating will be electric. It's all the same stuff that the Biden administration had tried to bring in with their Green New Deal, but this is the European Green Deal. Not new, it's just green. It's just green. So that's the first one. And then the second one is their emissions trading system, which is supposedly the bedrock on which all of their green stuff happens. And the emissions trading system is that, industries have to pay for their emissions, but then they provided free credits for the really heavy emitters because obviously it's impracticable and expensive for everyone to pay these emissions. So they were phasing them out as part of their carbon border adjustment mechanism. They were phasing out these emission trading things. And now they're like, actually, we can't do that yet. Industry was freaking out. Businesses are going to close. They're all going to go to China or America, whatever. So instead of getting rid of it, no. They do what Europe does. And they're extending it outwards to 2048. So it's going to gradually reduce over the next 20 years or something, instead of phasing out by next year. So that was a shift. Then
That's a big
there's
shift,
a
by
big
the way.
shift, right? This is the EU way, where they pass legislation, and instead of getting rid of it when it's clear it's punitive, it's slowing down the economy, instead of getting rid of the bad legislation, they keep it and just tweak a few things, or they exempt some people, whatever. And then I think the other big one is they're expanding the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So right now it affects 6 major industries. And so now they've decided the big ones aren't enough. Now that they're getting companies used to having to do all this monitoring, reporting, and verification, they have a really long list of downstream products that will now be covered by the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Finished steel, aluminum goods, household items. So now all of these things are going to be included in the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So all that does is layers on more bureaucracy, more taxes, because it's the consumers in Europe who pay this price, not
Yeah.
the people exporting. So that's just an overview of the 3 big ones. But for the American listeners, I think the most important one that dropped on Friday, late Friday afternoon, and I'll be curious to see how Chris Wright responds. But late Friday, Europe responded to the open letter that America, Qatar, Nigeria, and Algeria issued back at the end of June regarding the methane rules, these absurd methane rules. And how the EU is addressing it is they're recommending a 3-year delay. So instead of getting rid of it because it's stupid, they're like, no, we're just going to delay the fines, the penalties for noncompliance by 3 years. So basically, if the countries and the companies can't comply with the monitoring, reporting, and verification of every molecule that they export to the EU, it's like 10%, potentially 20% of their global turnover. That's the fine for noncompliance. So
I got 2 words for you. Just kidding. But when
just kidding.
I'm kidding. But think about that by them posing it out several years, Tammy. Windfall profit tax. So it's actually 3 words. You look at the North Sea, I got some questions for you on this one. The North Sea windfall profit tax wiped out all the profits that you have to put back into drilling again. So you sit back and kind of go, if I'm Cheniere, I'm any of the world's largest now exporters, since Qatar is now got some serious problems. Oops. And I just checked, and as of July 12, 2026, EU storage at 51% working capacity, 586.11 terawatt hours, according to their natural gas. According to a normal 5-year level, that's 15% lower than it normally is. They just got through buying 98% of the Sakhalin project out of Russia. So here's the EU going, we don't use Russian gas. Oh, but then they're paying out big bucks for all the Russian LNG they can get. Qatar is now down to 0. They've now pushed theirs restart out past October now. because the Iranians are now saying you don't want to be around an LNG tanker. We've seen that when Ukraine hit one in the Mediterranean, they go really big boom. I mean, that's a big boom.
Yeah.
So you take a look at the glorified actions of the EU and the Green New Deal folks. It is horrific. I got a question for you. Who's the new UK Prime Minister, and what's going on as Europe is now sending around on this? You got a new Prime Minister in the UK. How's Ed Miliband going to fit in with that new guy?
That's a good question. I don't know at this point. I think it's too soon. I mean, Andy Burnham was just sworn in on Friday. There's rumors that he's going to open up the North Sea. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to nationalize something, just because he's a full-on communist. Let's nationalize everything, right? So they're looking at nationalizing the water. They've already nationalized a bunch of the rail lines. So I don't know, because like ultimately they need revenue and they need the supply, and it remains to be seen exactly how that works out, because there's some talk that Ed Miliband wants to be the chancellor, like in charge of the treasury, which would be a disaster.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so
oh my gosh,
I don't know, we'll see.
Holy smokes. Wow.
See, that's exactly what I was wondering, is because the deep state or the politicians or the administrative folks of the UK don't want oil. So you may have a prime minister. Let me think. Her name was Liz Truss, I believe, and you're out. So I don't think the prime minister has control in the UK.
Well, one of the interesting things was that, so this consortium of Equinor, I think it's BP, maybe Shell, I can't remember, to develop the Jackdaw field. So there was I think 3 of the big companies. They created a consortium under some other name. When that was originally approved, the Greenpeace took them to court, and the court ruled that the permission, the approval was wrong, because the companies didn't take into account scope 3 emissions, which is the amount of emissions from people using their product, and they were supposed to take that into account as part of the process. Apparently, that's what the court ruled. So apparently, and I don't know all the details on this, the consortium reissued the plan, taking scope 3 into account, and basically said it will be negligible in the grander scheme of things, and therefore it's appropriate for the approval to go forward. So it sounds like they reissued their plan that takes scope 3 into account, because they're trying to mitigate the possibility of another lawsuit if the government decides, yes, you can go ahead. They said they're ready to produce in October. Everything's ready to go. Just got to do some connections or something. And I'm like, really? Okay.
Okay.
But they're making that case. There was a lengthy interview in the BBC on this, and they're like, yeah, we can be ready to go producing by October. We just need you to say yes, just say yes. So, but I imagine that Greenpeace and those guys will sue anyway, even though they've done this revised reporting, whatever, but because, they don't want it to happen. So
right.
We'll see.
And they don't want to end any conflicts. They want to create more conflicts to raise more money. And that's, and for their lawyers to keep making money as well. I want to talk about the methane tax extension for a second, though. Extending it out to 2029, just a couple of quick points. Extending it to 2029 gets them out of the Trump administration. And, their hope is we'll elect another communist in 2028, install him in 2029, and they'll reverse everything Trump's doing. And so we'll just go back to the insanity of the Biden years. And then that will put pressure on these companies to continue to do business with Europe. And in the meantime, taking that pressure off keeps companies like ExxonMobil and some of these other big companies who have threatened to pull out of Europe waiting to see what happens in 2029. So, I guess it's a clever strategy, but if the election doesn't go the way they want it to go, then what do? Do they extend it another 5 years and hope for a better result in 2032. This is, but it's smart. It's clever tactic. But ultimately, some of these companies are not going to comply with that methane, the reporting requirements. So in scope 3, they're just not. It's impossible to do anyway. It's just a stupid notion. So, but I mean, I just wanted to say that I think that's a pretty clever tactic anyway, to keep money flowing for another 3 years and see what happens in the U.S. election. So that at least is clever. The other stuff, just a general comment, all of that taken together, that list you sent over, strikes me as an acceleration of what the EU has been doing, not a moderation. Am I wrong about that?
The electrification is definitely an acceleration. And then the other things are just to keep it all going, right? Yeah. So the extension of the carbon border adjustment mechanism, that's an acceleration. The emissions trading system thing, that's a bit of a back off. One of the interesting things I didn't include was agriculture and livestock. So before, under the Green Deal and the farm to fork strategy, they were trying to get rid of cows. The Netherlands were shutting down farmers, saying that we'll buy you out, but you're not allowed to take that money and buy another farm within the EU and that sort of thing. And Ireland was going to be culling cows, and then they were going to do all these different things. But what fell a couple weeks ago is that the commission actually said meat production is national security, that's a big shift. But the proviso is we will allow you to keep your livestock because we think meat is important for national security and all these different things. However, to keep your livestock, you have to do the additives like Bovaer, which reduces the methane produced from the cattle, but Sweden found and Denmark found it kills them. So I don't know. So they put provisos on there that they have to do emissions reduction to keep the livestock and do other things on their facilities. But at least they're saying you can keep it. We're not going to cull.
They are going to use those instead of the jab or the COVID vaccines. I don't want to get us banned, just mentioning vaccines. But there is now proof that beef with a jab, you know what that is, right? A jab does have the same effect and same side effects kick in for people that eat it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
they suddenly might allow it only if they say, oh, as soon as you said, oh, but you got to do our prescribed jabs on the cows. Guess what's in those prescribed jabs?
Yeah. So a silver lining, I don't know. Not a silver lining, but it's like you get to keep your livestock, maybe if you do all this stuff. So I really don't know how they can, what they're thinking, but it's, the Europe is they're continuing on their trajectory. And I'm sure the Biden administration with the Inflation Reduction Act, which was really the Green New Deal embedded into these under the auspices of reducing inflation, whatever. I think they thought as long as America was doing that, they could keep moving forward. And it threw a monkey wrench in, but they're still moving forward, maybe just in a different way than what was expected.
Yeah. The other thing is about that 3-year delay is it just continues this pattern that we have seen for a decade now with all of these green goals. They're never met on the original timeline. And so the answer is always to simply extend the timeline. We've seen it in the United States repeatedly, over and over again, with wind, with solar, with electric vehicle mandates, all these things. And so why is that? Why are the goals never met? Because the goals are set by stupid people with unrealistic expectations who don't know anything about the subject matter they're legislating about. And that's why the goals are never met, because what the goals they set are impossible. And then they extend them to another impossible date. And when they get to that date or close to it, they're going to extend it again. And this is a pattern that's been repeated constantly, not just in Europe, not just in the United States. China does it too, all over the world, because this transition that all these governments are trying to subsidize into reality is an impossible dream. And so for as long as all of us live, and Tammy will live much longer than Stu and I from here, we're going to keep seeing these goals extended over and over and over again because they're not possible to achieve. And
because they're political goals,
political.
not realistic or engineering goals. It's like when I was speaking to Meredith and she was like, the engineers already know how to fix the problem, but they're not the ones making the decisions. Right. And it's like when I talk to Catherine Porter, she's like there's people behind the scenes who are running the grid who know what the problems are, but the people in charge don't want to hear it. And they're telling them, don't talk about it. There's supposedly an inquiry now that they're doing an internal inquiry into what happened on June 23rd. And they're telling the engineers not to talk. So it's like, but this is the problem, right? When you have these political goals and their aspirations to, whether there's some people within that the policymaking community who want to transform the economy. But if they told the people we're transforming the economy, people will be like, well, why? That's, it's going to cost us more. It's going to be unreliable. All these things are going to happen. We don't want that. So instead they couch it into these other terms, right? So it's like, right. Well, we're saving the planet and we're just going to reduce these emissions here and we're going to do this there. And we just need to make sure everybody's counting stuff and then we can verify things and so on. But that restructures the economy to do all that. But if they told people what they were doing, people would say no. So instead it's this, which is why the goals are never met, because it's political and they're not realistic. We all know that, every time you bring wind and solar onto the grid, it's parasitic and it makes everything unreliable because you still have to have all the reliable stuff there, which now is everybody's told it's evil. So, coal's bad, natural gas is bad, and so on.
Aslan Pilot Car 4450 corrects me on this, and I think you're right, Aslan. Never attribute this stupidity, which I just did, that which is obviously malice, which I normally do, by the way, in my own defense, and I just slipped up there. Some of these people are so obviously stupid, it's hard to remember the malice part. But yes, there's malice and forethought.
Yeah, my wife hits me in the back of the head every day. So I remind me that I am stupid. And that's what 40 years of marriage allows you to do, and say, yes, dear. So I want to kind of, this is an important shift, and it's energy security starts at home, and energy dominance is displayed through your exports. But let me kind of change this up a little bit. We're seeing that the UK, the new prime minister says, I'm going to open up North Sea oil.
Maybe. There's been hints. He hasn't said it.
Right.
It's rumors.
Yeah.
It's rumors.
Here's my thing. I think the politician or the administrative people running the government in the UK won't. But Shell and BP are very involved right now. Let me go through my little question here. Shell is now expanding Canadian oil field sands, which is phenomenal. Way to go, Shell. Way to go, Canada. I love all my folks up in Alberta. Shout out to my Snow Texans. Now, let's go over to Iraq. Iraq now has ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, and Chevron, and they are going to be exporting out. They hit 4 million barrels this past month by truck. That's ingenuity. That's about 3,000 trucks on the road. That's a lot of work.
Where are those trucks headed? Where are they going? What's the outlet?
They're going through Syria to the Mediterranean.
Okay.
And that's where the new pipelines are going. The Turk Stream. There's another pipeline. Anyway, this is a whole big mess, and I've got a reason for setting this up. We're seeing the troops come out of Iraq. President Trump announced we're done were getting out of Iraq. You see what happens all of a sudden. Energy security, people are bypassing the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
EU is tripling down on policies that don't work. You've got Iraq going, they flare a billion, whatever the number is, they import from Iran 60% of their gas to produce electricity and probably 50% of their electricity, and they flare everything because they don't have pipelines. Guess who's solving it? I did not have on my bingo card that the U.S. is now helping fund this emergency and merging market in energy going on. Who's going to be buying Iraq gas in a few years? It's going to be through the Turk Stream pipeline system.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other really bad one is Russia got a hit in the back of the head. Speaking of wives hitting them in the back of the head, China just said no to the Siberia 2 pipeline. So now that's a big deal as far as that was going to replace Russia's EU loss of all their natural gas. That's now dead. So the EU is not looking at energy security, and they're looking at carbon border mechanisms. They're looking at all of these funding processes, and they're forgetting energy basics. Did I get all that correct?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the energy basics aspect, they believe like there's elites up there who think it's just a matter of will to electrify everything, and that it's being these people who are throwing the monkey wrench in and slowing things down. And it really reminded me of Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago, where the Soviets were always like, you're a wrecker. You're just trying to derail our amazing process of going through and restructuring the economy, and it's you engineers who are doing it on purpose. And that mentality is in the elite policy-making structure of the European Union. They're communists at heart, and they believe that they have this grand vision. And it's just these little people who keep interfering and throwing it off rail, and they just have to try harder. It's like, if you try harder, you can make that square peg fit in the round hole. And that's kind of
square that circle.
Square that circle. Come on. But there was an article in the Financial Times, actually, that one of the spokespersons for Andy Burnham, the new prime minister, said they will not go back on the Labour manifesto, which bans all new developments and exploration in the North Sea. She said he won't do it. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Technically, Jackdaw and Rosebank were already approved, but it had to go to litigation. So I don't know. Maybe he could thread some line there. I'm not sure. But the spokesperson came out and said he won't renege on that. So I don't know. Well, time will tell. Time will tell.
Virtual signaling from the left is what Gavin Newsom and all of our blue states in the United States, they have 38% higher energy costs. Gavin Newsom now has 12 rigs. Gavin, I hate to tell you this, in 2025, they had 12 permits. Okay, they now this week have 12 rigs running in California. I did not have that on my bingo card. I thought they were going to get it down to 0. They had it 0 until this past week. That tells you what is just going on. But Gavin Newsom learned from the EU.
Of course, because they're all in alignment. It's the Progressive International. So if you look at these different progressive groups, whether it's the Center for American Progress, their European counterparts, which sometimes can go under different names, there's this transnational movement, which is why you hear them use the same rhetoric. They all say the same thing. So it's like, they do that kind of thing. Aslan asks, will Norway open up the North Sea in spite of the UK? Probably. It's like literally just on the field goes across that international boundary.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Norway could very well just develop it, and as they do already, and then export it to the UK, because the UK is too dumb to do it themselves and earn the revenue from it, right? Because they won't get the royalties, but Norway will.
Sure.
So yeah,
I
and
you have to hand it to Norway. Norway was shutting down their entire 4 year. Let me think. I went to Oklahoma State. I can't read and I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 5 years ago, they were shutting down all their natural gas. Now they're the number one supplier of natural gas to the greenies. Good grief.
yeah, I think they're also reopening fields that they had closed about 10 or 15 years ago, right? Because they'll do CO2 injection. There's new techniques now where they can recover more from the older fields. So they're opening all that up. But I mean, yeah, it's like they get to be the supplier for Europe, and
I want to
which
give
gives them leverage.
Dave Walker a shout out. UK's premier to commit suicide by energy literacy and communism. If the normies don't revolt, they're doomed. And
Yeah.
Dave, I want to say that, uh, Democrats have always put the EU and the UK on pedestals, and Democrat blue run states do the same thing.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Including
Um,
our biggest
I
population.
want to give Aslan a shout out again. This is absolutely a hoot. Are all those illegal truckers ICE kicked out of the U.S. now have gainful employment in Iraq?
Iraq. Okay. Well, somebody got to drive those trucks.
Oh, absolutely. There's a
Yeah.
lot of trucks on there. I didn't see this energy shift happening the way that it is happening. And the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians pulled the plug, pulled the lever, going, we got control of the strait. No, watch this. The UAE is already, they're almost halfway done with the pipeline, their expansion.
yeah.
You've got all this. Now they're going over to the Houthis and saying, would you mind blowing up the Strait of El Mandab Strait, or whatever the name of that thing is, in the Red Sea, causing the Yanbu exit port for Saudi Arabia from the east to west pipeline. That's 7 million barrels per day. And then you have that they would have to then put those on Suez sized tankers to go through the Suez Canal. That would be meaning changing it. It's about a fourth of the size of a VLCC of 2 million barrels. So you start calculating out the number. Again, there's my OSU math again. You're calculating out the number of tankers and the cost and the time. It doesn't make sense anymore. So everybody's trying to bypass choke points to get
straight to the Med is the way to do it. And every Persian Gulf country, every one of them is going to have an alternate route within 3 years. Every one of them will.
Yeah.
And so Iran has this leverage today that they're abusing. They will have zero geopolitical leverage over anything when that day comes.
And
they're cutting their own throats by doing what they've been doing.
Sorry, David. I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
Their revenue stream, you're on point, David. And I'm not meaning to be nice or compliment you, but
damn, dude, come on, man.
Their revenue stream is going to be zero.
I want to loop in here, though, China's reaction, and what this really flew under the radar. So in May, China introduced some new decrees, making it essentially illegal for companies to share certain supply chain data. They're not allowed to permit auditing by external bodies or provide verifiers as demanded by the EU rules, which is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism and due diligence. So the thing is, they make it illegal for the companies to do that. The Chinese companies will be like, yeah, okay, whatever, we're not going to do it. We'll absorb whatever cost extra it is, because the European Union CBAM has averages that you can use in lieu of what the real numbers are, whatever, but you're only supposed to do that in extenuating circumstances. But China's like, yeah, no, we're not going to allow our companies to do that. If there's a multinational company, though, that's in China that's producing things that will be exported to the EU, it puts them into significant difficulties because they want to comply. they can't afford to absorb the cost of the average, because the average is really high. They do it sort of incorrectly on purpose so that the number's very high to encourage companies to actually do the monitoring and reporting and auditing, verification, and so on, so that the general numbers are much higher than they would be if you just did it yourself. So these multinational companies will be stuck. It's like, okay, our board is telling us we have to comply, our shareholders are telling us, but the Chinese government is saying that's illegal and we can't afford the charges. So it could be one way to kick the multinationals out. The companies will then be bought up by Chinese companies or whatever.
Right.
They'll get all the IP as they've done before on other things. And in the end, China's like, yeah, we're not complying. We don't want your verifiers to come in and look over our books. So interesting development. No one's talking about it, but you heard
Of
it here.
course not, because it's China. Nobody, none of these globalists want to say anything negative about China because they all want to do business with China, and many of them are in the pocket of China. So they're not going to be critical of China.
Yeah.
And I mean, and unfortunately, that includes about a third of the United States Congress in that category.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to disagree with you, David. I think it's 90%.
Oh, come on, man. It's not 90%.
90? Oh, no.
84%.
Just trying to be provocative now.
Yeah.
It's a Monday, and it's a holiday.
Yes, I feel good. What else? What else do we have going on? I've got some topics.
Okay.
I got some things. Let's see here. What have I got? So the first thing I wanted to just mention today is this report that I posted about this morning on my Substack from Cowboy State Daily about a new study that is a very conservative estimate that Wyoming wind farms killed more than 23,000 birds and bats in 2025 alone, including 1,160 large birds. That includes golden eagles, bald eagles, raptors, and big waterfowl. Now, Now, I just wanted to mention in all that, and it's a very conservative estimate because it just includes actual surveys of the ground cluttered with carcasses of birds and bats underneath the wind turbines. And a lot of that gets missed. Raptors carry off a lot of scavengers, buzzards, and other scavengers carry off a lot of the bodies as soon as they hit the ground. So it's an incredibly conservative estimate. But anyway, it just shows you some of the carnage the wind industry does. I just want to point out in all this that in either 2007 or 2008, I forget which year, a golden eagle flew onto this was in Colorado, a drill site operated by ExxonMobil, got caught in the drill pit, filled with returned water and oil, drowned in it. Exxon recovered the carcass, reported it as they were required to do to the U.S. Department of the Interior. And what happened to Exxon for one eagle getting killed on its location? They were fined over $1 million by the federal government. For all these bird and bat deaths caused by the wind industry, how much are they going to get fined? Zero. Okay.
Zero.
They actually have a license, David. They have a permit to kill X number of eagles and other. I don't get that. Right. Farmers go to jail for protecting their flock.
Exactly. I mean, if a farmer killed a golden eagle in Wyoming, they would be put out of business by the federal and state government. When developers do it, they just have permits to do it. So that's the hypocrisy of green energy. And the green groups, what we call green groups, PETA, Sierra Club, don't utter a peep about any of this. They don't care. So that's the hypocrisy of green energy in Wyoming. The other one I wanted to be sure and mention here is this.
Do you think USAID's money drying up may help the propaganda that was used on this? Because green energy propaganda is funded in a lot of different ways.
Oh, well, sure. Yeah, it's funded by USAID. It's funded by billionaire foundations from the Rockefeller family, the Park Foundation. Soros family. I mean, yeah, the propaganda, and it goes straight to these media organizations. Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, famous for taking that money and just cutting and pasting those articles onto their websites.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not just those. I mean, it's all of them. And so yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it's fun. I wish we had something similar, frankly, for sensible reporting and writing about energy, right? But we don't, because the billionaires are all left wingers. So anyway, the other one I wanted to bring up is this headline. It just cracked me up at the Wall Street Journal this morning. The headline reads, "The key to solar and wind power is battery storage, and China is dominating." Now,
Of course. Yeah.
the headline on July 20th, 2026 in the Wall Street Journal. We have known this to be the fact for a quarter of a century. Okay. But it's only today, 25 years after we've known this reality. And even before then, we knew that the battery technology was going to be the key to wind and solar. And China was dominating all of that. All of those technologies, China dominates the supply chains. But it's just now being reported in the Wall Street Journal. I'm sorry, it cracked me up, and it pissed me off too at the same time. But that's just the state of our media reporting about green energy.
But the batteries, okay, they can talk about the batteries, but then you look at the battery facilities that have burnt down in California in particular.
Right.
There was a couple of really, really bad ones. It goes underreported in China what the batteries are doing with respect to spontaneously combusting. There was a case last week of one of the pushes by Ed Miliband was to put solar on all of the National Health Service buildings, so hospitals, GP practices, and whatever, all these different facilities. They were going to put their solar in. They were going to have batteries. It was going to help decarbonize hospitals. And one in the Midlands last week, the hospital burnt down because of faulty solar panels.
Jeez.
So it's like, okay, you're saying you should do that, but you're then you're going to burn the hospital down. How long is it going to take for that hospital to be rebuilt? And where do the people go in the meantime? Because the National Health Service in the UK is there's wait lists like crazy. It's not very good in that respect. And now there's even no space now for a local hospital. So there's trade-offs, and I don't think people have been presented an accurate assessment of what it means to have wind solar batteries and what the potential downsides of them are. Batteries, it's great. Well, no, not always.
The same is true for rooftop solar on homes, right? You don't get told any of that up front, the dangers of it, and how often you're going to have to replace the panels and how vulnerable they are to hailstorms and things like that. That's never part of the sales pitch you get from these college kids. Basically, you come out and walk you through a slideshow. Right. So all these people have put solar panels on their homes. Many of them have had their homes burned down. And many of them don't understand that 20 years from now, you're going to actually shorter than that, 10 to 15 years from now, you're going to have to replace all those panels and the batteries that they're charging, during the daylight hours. None of that gets told to you while you're buying the stuff. It's only years later down the road that you find these things out. Same thing with electric vehicles. Nobody tells you about the potential while you're charging your battery in your garage with your handy Tesla charger, or whoever you bought it from. You're going to pay double the homeowner's insurance because of the liability that your house might burn down while you're charging your electric vehicle in your garage. So, it's like the old Amway stuff. I don't know. This is an old reference, but people at my age remember Amway and the multi-level marketing, the pyramid scheme that it was based on. All of renewable energy is based on the same principle. You only disclose what you have to disclose up front to sell it, right? And let the buyer beware down the road.
Tammy, let me ask you this. For battery storage, right now the EU has about 55 gigawatts of battery storage online. UK has about 7.5 gigawatts grid scale batteries online combined. Simple addition, 62.5 gigawatts, but this is not perfectly apples to apples because EU figures broader storage. Now, here's where I also asked it, how much of those are recyclable?
Zero.
That's a good question.
Zero. There is no information on it. And in the United States, the bum rush for subsidies ended this month. And so they were pushing everything they could to get it into the inflation, the big, beautiful bill to get those subsidies. And it, you sit back and kind of go. In the United States, I've calculated on my hand $89 billion liability just for wind.
Wow.
Batteries are just as bad. That's for land reclamation and problems with the blades. And over in Sweetwater, right over from, you can throw a rock and I can see these things. It's disgusting. They are not doing good.
It's interesting that they keep touting all of this 7 gigawatts, 7.5 gigawatts, 60 gigawatts are approved of this battery storage. But what happened in June? Was it used? That, when the UK grid almost collapsed and we had to go begging to France for more energy? I mean, so how is that being used exactly? How does that get rolled out? I don't know. How long does it last? How long does 7 gigawatts last when you got to draw on it because you have a Dunkelflaute when it's calm?
So if I'm Herr Starmer and I go, can I have more
please,
electricity,
sir?
Please? May I have some more,
I know.
So I was trying to do my Oliver imitation. May I please have some more?
Sir, may I have some more?
Please, sir.
Please, sir.
Sorry.
Well, and I think it's appropriate that that's a British story. Oliver Twist.
Sorry.
Yeah. So one of the interesting the things about the UK is that they keep adding all of this unreliable, weather dependent stuff onto the grid, and it's like when the blue states end up in a grid in the United States with red states, and then do the red states end up having to carry the load for the blue states that have put all this unreliable parts onto the grid?
JPM, like up east, covers like 7 or 8 states, and all consumers across all of it gets really mortified in a different way. Texas has only got ERCOT, so it's one of the few that is pretty much standalone. I've got 2 questions for you. Not 4 questions. I got 2. Yeah. Okay. In the there is a known fact of Chinese equipment in telecom and grid equipment and solar panels and everything else for having back doors.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue. It's kind of like, oh, look at the time. Any politician looks at his watch and go, I got to go. I got CNN on. And they're gone. But you take a look at how do the UK and the EU folks take care of grid resiliency at their house without using Chinese solar panels? And do you get fined? Because we now have Washington is now fining people for catching rainwater. They really learned from Ed Miliband on that. I'm serious. The guy got arrested because he put in a rainwater thing to catch water in the city is arresting him because they don't like. I'll go look it up. But I was reading it. I was like, I got to write an article on this one. It is absolutely nuts that they're going that far reaching and say I can't collect rainwater. I think the EU is going to get to that point because they are saying water is critical.
Well, I mean, so the UK hasn't created a new reservoir in 30 years. Yeah. And they are increasing their population. And like Thames Water, they're building all these new homes. And they've been trying to build a reservoir just outside of Oxford in a town called Abingdon. And every time they put a proposal forward, the people say, no, we don't want a reservoir because it's going to wreck this, it's going to wreck that. And then when it gets hot, they're like, oh, there's a hose pipe ban, and you're not allowed to water your garden, and you can't do this, and you're supposed to not use too much water. I'm like, it's England. When it's rainy, it's so rainy. Can't you capture some of that and store it? But the people don't want the reservoirs. It's crazy. It's like they want nuclear, but they don't want nuclear. And every time they try to build something, the activists come out and they create all these changes and change requests and so on. That that's why Hinkley Point C, it's been 25 years in the making, because every time they do something, then they get sued, and then there's they have to create a disco for the fish so that they don't get sucked in, or I don't know. It costs like a fortune. They call it the fish disco. Google it. It's hilarious. Like flashing lights.
I'm sorry, I'm doing my John Travolta there.
But speaking of China, Doomberg had a really good piece which kind of reflected. It was similar to Irina's take on the Energy Institute, which has taken over the BP Statistical Review of World Energy.
Yeah.
And Doomberg was really critical of them about how they're sliding towards the IEA under fatty B-roll, where, and I'm quoting here, they said, long on platitudes, short on neutrality. And they have to do a verbal jujitsu, is how they described it, to try and say that, oh, renewables are catching up. And they just had to manipulate stuff in the interpretation. And I wouldn't say massaging the data, but massaging the interpretation of the data to say about how amazing China is. China's solar industry is booming, and batteries are booming. It's like the Wall Street Journal article, right? Where it's like, what positive things can we say about China? China's amazing. And it makes me wonder, well, how much money are you getting through backdoors, Energy Institute, from China to make this case? But then again, the EU also wants to sort of cozy up to China. So I don't know. It's interesting to see Doomberg take the same take as Irina.
Who funds the Energy Institute, by the way? Do we know?
I searched that a little while ago, but I can't remember now.
But yeah, I totally agree with that take about them. They've really gone off into this platitudinous direction with a lot less real information than BP used to put in those annual reports. I was really depressed when BP farmed that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pity that they didn't keep doing it. Like, everyone was like, oh, well, it's an oil and gas company, they're biased. It's like, no, right. They weren't. They were just presenting the data, and then you could do with it as you, and it would just be a general interpretation of it. But now there's spin on the on it. So,
well, the corporations, the oil companies don't have any incentive to fake the numbers, right? It's just numbers. It's statistics, it's information, it's real information. The corporate interest is to have as accurate a forecast as possible so that they can properly plan their business enterprise and make profits.
Yeah.
It's for planning purposes. Yeah. It would be retarded for a corporation to dummy up a fake report like that. But yeah, I mean, that was always the criticism. Yeah. But so you farm it out to this independent group that is heavily influenced by money, where's their funding going to come from, and all sorts of other pressures to appear to be virtue signaling about green energy and all that stuff. And you end up with a report that's a lot less useful than what BP used to put out. So I used to try to write about it each year in the past few years, but I didn't even do a piece on it this year because it's not, there's other more important things to write about.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you all ever had this much material to write on?
No, it's just crazy. I mean, it's just every day. It's impossible to
every
keep
day
up with
there's
the news
something.
cycle. Yeah.
7 years ago, I was writing articles and I was sitting there going, what am I going to write about this week? Now it's like 15 minutes. It's already old, stale news.
Well, look just at the list of things Tammy brought to this show. 5 years ago, any one of those would have made a whole show. We barely got into any of them in any real detail because there's so many things to try to talk about. And it's
well, they're all
wild.
interconnected, and it's like what I said is when it comes near the end of the parliamentary session, they try to pass a bunch of things or get agreement on things so they can, after the holiday of August, they can turn it into directives and whatnot. And so there's like this flood. There'll be nothing in August because everybody in Europe goes on holiday, and good luck trying to get anything fixed because it's actually kind of weird how they do it. I remember we lived in Holland, and I remember our landlord said, "You better hope nothing breaks in August." And we're like, "Well, why?" And he said, "Because no one will fix anything, because if some guy's working, he's taking business away from the guy who's on holiday. So they all kind of collude to agree that nobody will fix anything in August." So you just pray that nothing breaks.
Wow.
Maybe, I don't know if it's still like that, but it was certainly like that.
It's kind of like everybody, as we were winding down here, everybody needs to go to the nemethreport.substack.com. Let me share to the screen. And that is the nemethreport.substack.com, and a great article. We also have blackmon.substack.com. And I tell you what, I use a lot of his material. Go to the Energy Newsbeat, but I also want to go to my website. This is energynewsbeat.co or energynewsbeat.com, and I now have I titled it the world's best energy podcast show notes. And I think it's because we have to cover so much stuff that it's just not easy putting it in a Substack anymore. It is absolutely brutal trying to be an author anymore.
But it's fun.
But that's okay. Makes it fun. Makes it fun,
and there's never-ending opportunity, right? Job security.
And it doesn't get dull because there's always something interesting happening. Although, seriously, I think August is going to be hopefully a slow month, at least in Europe. In America, no one takes a break. So
we have a president who doesn't sleep, so it's never a dull moment here.
Yeah, shout out to Spain. I was rooting for somebody other than a communist country to win, so I was rooting for Argentina on the World Cup. So that was kind of fun.
Oh, Spain won? I didn't pay attention.
They finally scored a goal, the first goal of the game, halfway through the second overtime period.
Oh my gosh, how boring! Yeah.
It's just so tedious that you want to pull your hair out.
I still want to give a shout out to all of the world people that came to America and got to see through fake news and really experience Buc-ee's in the United States.
Buc-ee's! My kids were watching the videos of the people going to Buc-ee's for the first time and just being overwhelmed.
It is. I mean, it's a real sensory overload when first time you walk into a Buc-ee's. It's pretty amazing thing. Because you've literally never seen, if you're not from Texas, you've literally never seen anything like it.
Yeah. Yay, Texas, the land of the big.
Oh, God.
Well, and then there were people going to Costco for the first time. $1.50 for a hot dog and a drink.
And free refills. I also love was it Norway that had the Viking row? That was absolutely very cool. Everybody was, the police were meeting them at the runway with a Viking row. I mean,
oh, wow. That's awesome.
Congratulations to the security team that we didn't have any major things. That would have been a disaster. And I know they probably had a few that they stopped that we never heard about.
Yeah. You can't imagine.
Well done.
And I want to give a shout out to Scotland because apparently all the people in kilts and
they ran Boston out of beer.
In Boston, running out of beer. Which I didn't think was possible in Boston, of all places. Like, oh my gosh.
All right. Well, next week we'll have some more fun things. And this was a great show. Thank you, Tammy. And thank you, David. We'll have this out on everybody's Substack. So rock on.
Thank you, too.
Have a great week.
Have a great week, everybody. Bye.